Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Chesney, White Rock City Councilor and editor of the White Rock Sun. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you very much, Jim. Nice to be back with you.
What were people chatting about at your community meeting on the weekend?
Well, it was a wide variety. Again, without running the risk of sounding like a broken record, high-rise development in White Rock is front and center for everyone. We have a number of proposals or requests that'll be coming before City Council for at least five high-rise densification developments outside of our town center as we slowly try to create the new OCP, which, for people that aren't aware, each community has to have an official community plan. It has to be renewed every 5 years. Doesn't mean you have to change it, but you have to take it out, dust it off, and have a look and see if it still is a guideline that's working for the community. In a White Rock's case, our last one was done in 2008. Should have been done in 2013, but I don't think there was any appetite going into an election year. I think it was set onto the side and decided that, well, we'll wait until after the election. The new council should be the one that creates this. Fair enough. So we're in that process now, but there seems to be a pedal to the metal attitude of, while we're creating our new OCP, we have a situation where there are developers at the door, and perhaps we should see if these are projects that should go ahead. Now, that decision to go ahead, yes or no, will be made by council, and we had a front page story here a while back, about 2 weeks ago. Our Mayor Baldwin, ascertained that we were legally bound by an agreement that we had made with Metro Vancouver, and people can read all of the details in the White Rock Sun. It has since been disputed by Councilor Fathers, who is on council now and was on council back in 2011 when this agreement was made. And she basically took the mayor to task and said, we are not legally bound. We do have every right to alter this, depending on how we feel we're able to absorb the growth, given, the impact that it'll be on all the utilities in White Rock, the hospital, the roads, etc. So that's still the big hot topic here. What is really heartwarming, though, is we have more and more people turning out at the community conversation that have never been to something like this, and they seem quite thrilled to be able to hear what the community is talking about, and I hope that they continue to come back out on a monthly basis and bring a neighbor or two with them. The whole idea behind the community conversation is there is no boundaries for it. The topic can be whatever anybody wants to talk about. One lady arrived. Unfortunately, she wasn't aware that the meeting was only 10 to 11:30, and she came and wanted to address the fact that we have a butterfly garden here in White Rock that some thieves decided that they would make off with some of the plants and take them home to their gardens. Well, something like that sets this butterfly garden back years, because it does take 2 or 3 years. I believe it was hollyhocks the lady was talking about are tremendous for butterflies. So it can range anything from high-rise developments to the desire to talk about, hollyhock gardens or community gardens, butterfly gardens. So that really buoys my spirits that we're starting to connect more and more and get out of, not to diminish the very big hot topics, but I really do love to see those issues come forward where people just, some of the smaller things in the community, because that's exactly the idea behind the community conversation.
Now I wonder, when it comes to security, for things like community gardens, why they don't put up more GoPro cameras, where they're small, they're affordable, a pretty good way to keep track of things, high quality definition, where you can actually make out the faces of these crooks, who should be, if anything, at least publicized. Do you know anything about the disappearance of these flowers from our butterfly garden?
I think that's a good idea. I don't know, because we have a very small community garden in White Rock. There are plans for a much larger one to be created at the permission from the developer that's got a piece of property sitting idle. The city made a deal to put in some community garden beds, but unfortunately the permission never came till August, so it's a little late for planting season. So Well, see, I haven't had, firsthand experience. I mean, I've visited a number of community gardens. We have a huge one down in Crescent Beach. I think it might have been one of the first ones in the Lower Mainland, to the best of my knowledge. It's just a marvelous creation that they have down there beside the marina. So I've never got the impression that theft was a real big problem, and I have to say, quite honestly, if somebody comes to steal vegetables, I can only assume it's because they're hungry. I don't think it's malicious, unwanted damages created by vandals or anything. At least I haven't heard of anything like that. So I don't know that it's that big a problem. Unfortunately, this incident certainly caused this lady some concern, because she's quite active in maintaining this butterfly garden. So I'd hate to think that we have to come to that, but it might be that case that we have to have some kind of security installed at these community gardens. Hopefully we don't have to.
I'd just be more worried about general vandalism. You know what people are like. If I can't have it, then nobody else can.
Yeah, again, I think this might have just been an isolated incident. I would hope that that's the case. The lady indicated the butterfly garden has been there for a number of years. It's just that these particular plants that were stolen, it took 2 or 3 years for them to grow to the size that they actually were doing the job that they set out to do. So she was rather upset that was the case. So she said she's pretty confident the people that took them, it wasn't wanton willful damage. It was just somebody that knew the value of these plants and thought they might take them home and put them in their garden. So I don't know how we can protect against that. I've never really been an advocate to dumb everything down to the lowest common denominator myself. So I guess time will tell, but I can understand this lady's concern, and certainly her concern, hopefully she's able to come to the next community conversation in October, and maybe we can start this through the community, and maybe somebody knows, maybe somebody saw somebody, with them. I'm not too sure how we deal with that.
Well, hollyhocks are very substantial. I mean, they're pretty hard to hide.
Yes, they are.
We'll have more with David Chesney right after this.
Unbelievable harmonies, spectacular performance, Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel in Oliver, October 2nd, in Kelowna, October 3rd. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with David Chesney. David, at the community conversation, any talk about the federal election and what issues people want to talk about there?
Well, I was happy to see that our Liberal candidate took the opportunity to come out, and she respectfully, and because she hadn't had a chance to speak with me, but I spoke with her after the meeting, she didn't want to bring her literature and kind of work the room, but I explained to her that, again, there isn't a parameter as such, so if she wanted to come and at the end of the meeting introduce herself and say, I have some of my literature and I'll be out in the foyer if anybody would like to stop by and talk to me, that would be wonderful. So, but as far as, no, we never really got into, and I think now that we're back, summer's over, kids are back in school, we're down into the home stretch now, I think people are going to become a little bit more engaged. We're now starting to see that some of the all candidates meetings are in the process of being arranged. It's an interesting race we have here in White Rock, South Surrey. Long been a conservative riding, and they have a gold-plated candidate in the former Surrey Mayor, Diane Watts, is the conservative candidate here. I would have to assume that a person of her caliber, when the Conservatives approached her, I would think that they have made overtures to her that she wouldn't be sitting on the backbench very long if she was to join the party and they form government. So it will be a formidable job to topple her, but, looking at some of the polls, it certainly appears that the Liberals and the NDP are going to make this a strong three-horse race. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll depend largely on how heavily Diane Watts engages into the community. I've seen no evidence of that yet. She's put up her signs in the past week or so, has now opened up her office. So we'll see if that profile starts to ramp up. But the present time, I think, and I don't know in the other ridings, it appears that that everybody's playing it very safe and doesn't want to stick their foot in their mouth and be killed with one bad saying. Everybody's just kind of really trying to play their cards real close to their chest right now and ride the wave of whatever happens federally.
Right. We have the latest poll from CTV. The NDP 33%, Liberals 31%, Conservatives 26%. The first time that the Liberals have actually, or I should say the Conservatives have actually trailed in the polls, and Mr. Harper said if he doesn't win the election, he will step down.
Right.
Now, does that give people more incentive to turn out for any side?
Yeah. Well, I certainly and I'm sure you're plagued on social media as much as I am. As the anti-Harper movement is out there in full force. I'd just like to see the NDP and the Liberals accentuate the positive a little bit more. Certainly, I think Mulcair and Trudeau are trying to do that, as opposed to just hammering the bad things that the Conservatives have done. I think pretty much everyone in Canada, if they're not a Conservative supporter, is pretty well informed on the things that have upset them about the Conservative government. So I'd just like to see my local candidates here, in particular the NDP and the Liberals, really start to tell me what they believe their top priorities would be for the Semiahmoo Peninsula should they be elected. I haven't seen that yet, but I'm watching.
Well, Ted Dixon, who actually helped Christy Clark's campaign, which turned out to be a winner in BC, but he's also the CEO of Inc. Research, and they do a lot of social and economic studies. And he said what he wishes is that all three parties right now would lay out their economic plans for Canada. Because right now they say, well, we might, we wish, we could, but they don't put down, we will. And, Mr. Harper saying we'll be good for the economy, we always have been. Well, this is the second recession that he's been prime minister for. So it doesn't really show. But also, as Mr. Dixon, pointed out, a Canadian prime minister has very little influence on the world and how the world economy goes, because Canada depends on a healthy China, on a healthy U.S. If their economies go down, they drag us down with it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what kind of a social network do they put out there to look after the people hurt by those recessions?
Right.
I think that's an important thing to lay out there.
It's a big job, that's for sure. And you're right. Canada, with our limited population on the world stage, doesn't swing the weight at the table of a vote to make startling changes. But I don't think that should ever preclude us from doing everything we possibly can to maintain our good reputation on the world stage. And I think we, generally speaking, have a pretty good reputation on the world stage. I'm not too sure under the Conservative government. Certainly on a personal level, I just don't support wars. I'm sorry, I don't. And I think Canada's role as peacekeepers is exactly what we should be returning to. We did it. We were well known for our famous blue helmets around the world, working with the UN. And I think, if anything, we should try to expand that role as opposed to following our neighbor to the south down the rabbit hole when they get involved in these conflicts.
Sure. I mean, the U.S. is involved in something like 22 wars since Obama became president. What was that Nobel Peace Prize he won for? I'm still wondering.
I can't answer that question.
I know. Nobody can. He can't even answer it.
Right.
David, anything else you want to throw in today?
I don't think so. I just like to encourage people to not give up faith. The election is thankfully we live in a country where we're still asked our opinion every 4 years. We can make change. I hope that the turnout surpasses anything we've ever seen before. I think this is going to be a tremendously important election for Canada in the next 4 years. My vote is still up for grabs, and I'm just waiting and sitting back, I think, with a lot of Canadians, waiting to see who's going to be that front runner that may have the ability to topple the Conservative government. So to me, that comes down to the NDP and the Liberals. I think, I embrace a lot of the doctrine of the Green Party, but This is not the election, in my mind, where we have that luxury of sending a Green candidate to Ottawa. We need to form a majority government other than the Conservatives, and certainly the Green Party doesn't have that ability. So it's going to come down to the NDP and the Liberals. So I would just encourage people to be engaged, be active, find out when your all candidates meetings are, send an email to your candidates if you have any questions. For the most part, I'm sure you'll receive a response, and let's make Canada a better place for all of us.
Well, now that brings up the topic of Conservative government policy. They've changed the voting rules so that strong, fast Canadians like Donald Sutherland is not allowed to vote in this election.
Yeah.
And he said he remained Canadian for a reason. He thought he should have a say in his native land. They've made it harder for people who live here but don't have permanent addresses to vote. And Elections Canada has been told you can't run ads explaining to people where and how to vote. And for new Canadians, I think that's very important to know. They may not even know about their rights to vote. So I don't know what message that sends to the populace about voting rights. But certainly to be told you can't educate people about voting tells me a lot about the policies behind it.
Well, it tells me a lot that, and we've discussed this at length before, Jim, it's all about who can get the vote out. It's as simple as that. When I was elected in 2014 in November, on the doorsteps and on the streets of White Rock, I heard loud and clear from virtually everyone I talked to that they had no appetite for a slate or a group of individuals running under one banner in a town as small as White Rock. Yet when the dust cleared, 5 of the members of the White Rock Coalition were returned, or for the White Rock Coalition, were elected to council. So, they spent $90,000 and got their message out. Mail drops, more signs, more posters, more people working on the street. So it just, at the end of the day, because of the poor turnout, especially at the civic level, which if we top 30 to 35% is high, it is very easy for one group of individuals, or in this case a slate, a party, to be elected. And the same thing happens at the federal and the provincial level. We all know that. So at the best we can look at in the federal election, 55, maybe 60% would be a massive turnout. That still leaves 40% of the great unwashed, and no political party really wants to have those people enter into the race. They want to be able to make sure that they get their supporters out. So we'll see who can do the better job of that, whether it's the Conservatives, the Liberals, or the NDP, because that's where the rubber is going to hit the road. Everything else means absolutely nothing until we move those people towards the polls. And, given the ability to vote online, would that engage more of the youth? It might, but I think it might engage a lot more people. But again, I don't think this is ever going to happen in our lifetime unless there's some massive changes in the electoral system, because people just do not want, no parties want to bring the great unwashed that they can't control into the mix. So,
and something I wanted to throw in with the conservative ad saying that Justin Trudeau is just not ready. He's 1 year younger than Stephen Harper was when he became prime minister. Should 1 year make that much difference?
Well, again, if you scrape below the surface, and good for you for identifying that, Jim, because that's exactly where we're at. If you tell somebody something long enough, eventually people will believe it. It's the soundbite that like that can win an election. It's also a soundbite that can lose an election. So everybody's being very careful out there. I don't know. I saw the comment that you alluded to earlier on that Harper has said, if he loses the election, that he'll resign. That could come back to backfire on him. On the other hand, it could be what it pushes him over the top.
Well, no Canadian prime minister has gone and successfully made a 4th term. He's battling history there.
Right.
Because I think after a while, it doesn't matter even how good a government is, the arrogance that builds up the longer they're in office is you can taste it, you can feel it. After a while, they feel they don't have to listen to anybody. They just automatically will win. In the case of the Alberta Conservatives, that was absolutely true until the last election. And that should send a message to people who think the Conservatives will automatically get in a fourth time. People after a while just feel you've been arrogant enough that just to change, just to switch, even if it's not a great decision, is worth it to get the crumbs out who think that they automatically are owed that job.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for, be it Mulcair or Trudeau, to step up to the podium and pound his fist and say, this is how it's going to be. If I'm elected, this is what I'm going to do, as opposed to being reactive to everything that the Conservatives say. I want a leader. I want a strong leader, and I haven't, between those two, I haven't seen either Mulcair or Trudeau really accept that mantle yet, in my mind. That's what I want to see. I want somebody. I remember being in Alberta years ago when Ralph Klein came to power, and there was a classic movie or television news clip where he stood at a podium and reached in his wallet and took out his credit card and tapped it on the podium, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a credit card like this that runs the province of Alberta, and I have to tell you right now, we're on the verge of bankruptcy. And it was that one soundbite that basically launched Ralph Klein into power. Well, so I'm looking for that. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for somebody to step up and tell me that, you know, that they're up for the job. They've got a plan, they've got a vision, and here's where we're going to go, and here's what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, I got tired of government ads telling me this is what we're going to do when the program that they were talking about had expired 2 years ago.
Well, that's true, and we've seen it so many times that election promises go by the wayside. Once they're elected, they go, well, we had no idea how bad the economy, the books really were. It's going to, you know, it just boggles the mind. But I want to see a strong leader. And I think that Trudeau and Mulcair may have that. I just haven't seen that. I want to see the old Johnny get angry, Johnny get mad, give me the biggest lecture I've ever had. I want a brave man, I want a caveman. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
well, you can vote for Donald Trump if you're an American. Seems to me he's a caveman with a tie.
Well, that's a conversation for a whole other day.
Yeah, certainly is, David. Thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Jim, thank you, and thank you to the Goddard Report and Vice Canada and National Observer and the White Rock Sun for stepping out there and putting our time and effort forward to try to bring people the true message of what's going on.
My guest has been David Chesney, White Rock City Councilor and editor of the White Rock Sun. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Check out our popular YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.